It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Kim Meter, representing the Abraxas organization today. Abraxas is a Career Center sponsor, and we really appreciate their support. Kim, let's start by having you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Diana. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Meter. I am a senior recruiter for Abraxas. I've been there for about 6 months now, so relatively new, but definitely love the firm and what we do and the services we offer for our local youth. I'll give you a little more info on that. Just firstly, my background. I've been in recruiting for 10 years now. So I initially started out of college with a recruitment agency and exclusively recruited for financial institutions. So think of your folks on Wall Street, hedge funds, asset managers, investment banks. Did that for about 5 years or so. From there, I moved into recruitment for pharma marketing. So I did a lot of work with big pharma, Pfizer, Merck, some of those guys. And that was when I was living my exciting life in New York City. I have since moved out to Western PA, well, Central Western PA, and have been working in youth services since. So, for those of you who aren't familiar, Abraxas is a residential youth service program, and we offer treatment and education for kids from various backgrounds, from mental health issues, developmental disorders, behavioral issues, drug and alcohol services as well. So great program. If you want to learn more, I will share the website in the chat as well. We're always hiring. We do have internships. So it would be great to check out the website. But more importantly, I am here for you guys today. Most of you, I'm sure, are coming up on graduation or are just getting out there in the workforce. Either way, a big part of your life is about to become interviews. And regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're just starting out or whether you're going in for a CEO interview, these tips are going to be able to help you throughout. So, we're going to do some very general stuff on how we can make things a little bit easier and make more sense for you guys and help you navigate that. So, just a brief overview of who I am. And again, of course, I'll leave all this stuff in the chat for you guys, my firm, the link to their website. The first few things we're going to go over: interview preparation, attire and presentation, common interview questions, which this is a big one. So we'll go over quite a few of those. And then I'm, of course, going to leave it open for you guys to do a question and answer portion. So, firstly, interviews in general, very nerve-wracking. I know I've done about 1 million of them. I've coached people for them. I've done them myself, from an interviewer perspective and an interviewee perspective, and it can be nerve-wracking on any side of the table. But what we're going to talk about today is what really makes a good interview, right? What helps you to stand out against the competition? So a lot of the skills that we're going to cover are going to be essential to you in throughout that entire process as you work on your search for the perfect role. So, interview preparation. This is something that I think a lot of people underestimate, right? They tend to think, well, I know who I am and I know what I've done and I know what's on my resume. So that's all I need to know for the interview. Unfortunately, this is a common misconception. You want to really be informed when you're going into an interview with the company. You want to be able to speak about that company on a knowledgeable level, right? What they've been doing, what are they in the news? Are they doing something relevant? Do they do community outreach programs? I mean, did they have a crazy sales year last year and maybe their revenue is up? Little facts that are all really good to know. So I tell folks, do your research, go on the company website. Every company website is going to have something called an about section, a mission statement, who we are. any one of those sections. You're going to want to look at those, review who they are, what they do, what their philosophies are. It should also give you information on the culture. So there's a ton of stuff that you can learn about the company just from this section. So not only is it good for you, where you get to sort of learn more about who they are, it also gives you a chance to highlight that in the interview, right? Show that you did some research, so show that you know about who they are. Knowledge is power. So the more you have, the better. So again, do your research. You want to make sure you're prepared. Are there any recent news articles maybe that they're focused on? A lot of times in the interview, the question comes up, why do you want to work for us? Or what do you like about this company? This section and that research is going to help you to answer that question, because you can say, well, I noticed that Abraxas is really involved in community outreach and giving back to the environment, and that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart as well. So that's what made me interested. So you can take all this information and use it in so many ways. So yeah, so there's your research. So again, think of your, I know we're going to go back to sort of old school, third grade, but who, what, where, when, and why. Who are they? What do they do? When are they doing it? Where are they doing it? How are they doing it? All great questions to know and answer about your company. So we're going to the old school current events articles, if anyone did that method. I know I'm aging myself, the 5 W's. Again, more along the lines of interview preparation. Another mistake that I see everyone make, especially the younger generation, everything's digital. It's 2023. It's all email, cell phones, QR codes, virtual meetings. This class itself is a great example. But at the end of the day, nothing replaces a good hard piece of paper. So, what you want to do every interview, even though you've already applied, maybe you already sent your resume into the manager directly because you've been talking to them. Regardless, you want to make sure that you bring copies physically on hand with you and bring multiple copies. So don't just go in there with one. It's happened to me and it's happened to lots of folks I know. You're interviewing, maybe you're meeting with Diana, you guys are having a great conversation. Joe Smith walks by. Diana decides she wants to introduce you to Joe Smith. And next thing you know, you're having a second interview without even realizing it. Now, Joe Smith might not know your background. So you want to be able to hand him a resume and say, hey, great, nice to meet you, happy to talk to you, let me hand you my resume, and so you can get a little bit more information about me. So very important. Also the way you carry it, I know this seems minuscule, but I say this to everyone: get a folder, a portfolio, a notebook, something. I've seen it happen lots of times. The resume has coffee stains, it's wrinkled, it's been folded up in the back pocket or the suit jacket. So again, first impressions, presentation counts, make sure they're nice and neat. Another big thing when it comes to interview prep, location, right? Finding out where these guys are and what it takes to get there. I can't tell you how many folks have underestimated the amount of time the drive was going to take, or there was an accident, or delay on public transportation, whatever it may be. So we know some of these things are out of our control, of course, but we want to do as much as we possibly can to avoid any issues that come up. So first thing I always say is Google, look at where they are, find out a route to get there, have an alternate route to get there. And then, of course, most importantly, build yourself time. So you want to make sure that if there is an accident or there is traffic on the freeway, you're still going to get there on time. So I tell folks, if it's taking you 20 minutes to get there and your interview is at 11 a.m., you should already be at the building by 10:30, hanging around waiting for your time to go in, right? So if you know it only takes 20 minutes, maybe you want to leave at 10 o'clock. You're there by 10:25. You've got plenty of time. Freshen yourself up, get yourself together, review your notes, and still be on time, regardless of what happens. So that's a big, big one. Um, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is important, is the specific time that you're showing up to the interview. Of course, we never want to be late, but at the same time, we don't want to be too early either, right? So you have to realize you're coming in, you've built your whole day around this interview, you took off from school, you took off from your other job, you got ready, you got suited up, you got your resumes. But for these guys interviewing you, it's another day at work. So they've got meetings, they've got emails, they've got phone calls. So they make an appointment time for a reason. So we want to try to keep as close to that. If you come too early, they may be in the middle of something. Now you're here, now you're waiting. They don't want to keep you waiting. They start rushing. It's a whole thing. So, what I tell folks is give yourself 5 minutes before you go in. So you should be walking up to through the front door, the receptionist desk, coming out of the elevator, wherever it may be, 5 minutes to. You should be talking to the receptionist or your point of contact, letting them know you've arrived. So this gives them the 5 minutes now to escort you to the meeting room, grab any other folks they need to grab your resume, grab their paperwork, and then everyone's still on time. So, timing is crucial in that one. So, definitely keep that in mind while you guys are running through your interviews. Big one, attire and presentation. Another one that may seem sort of common sense, but you would be very surprised. Unfortunately, we live in a world where human beings are human beings and they all sort of come with ideas in their head about different things and they make snap judgments. It's an unfortunate fact of human life, and people do judge us based on our appearance, how we speak, what we look like, how we present ourselves in general. So, this is sad but true. I know we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but at the same time, we have to decide if we even want to read the book, right? So, first impressions are important. Keep it conservative. This is a big thing that I tell folks. You might be able to tell I have very bright red hair, maybe not the most conservative thing. It is 2023. People are a little less strict and uptight, sort of, about how we represent ourselves or choose to express ourselves. But at the end of the day, we're still all here to do a job, and it does reflect upon you how you present yourself. So keep it conservative, right? At the end of the day, you're representing these guys. Once you work for them and they start sending you out to maybe meet with clients or go on projects or do different things, you become an extension of them. So they are worried about how you are going to represent them. So I say, keep it basic, stick to a suit. That's always a great go-to. You can really never go wrong with that, depending on, of course, where you interview. If you're interviewing at KFC, I probably wouldn't wear a suit, but you get the drift. So a suit's always your best bet. Look into the background of the company. Again, doing that research will help give you a better idea of the culture and maybe what they're interested in. Ladies, especially, I say keep the hair and makeup conservative, keep it simple. You want them to focus on who you are and what you can do, right? So that's a big one. So definitely with the suit. The other thing I tell people is it's always good to overdress than underdress, right? So maybe it's a company where they're a little more casual, like us. I'm just wearing a sweater. I can wear a sweater and slacks to work every day. I don't have to wear full business attire. But I didn't know that going in. So when I interviewed with my company, I came in wearing a suit for my interview. However, I paid very close attention to everyone else while I was there. So this is just another good tidbit for you guys. Look around the room, right? You'll get a great idea of what the company allows, what their culture is, and how they expect you essentially to dress on a daily basis just by looking around the room. You'll see examples of it everywhere. So, always as you're going through the office, they usually have a set dress code. They usually will give this to you, but a great way, if you're not sure, is to just take a look around at the folks around you. So keep an eye when you're on those interviews for what folks are doing. So this is the section that I tend to spend the longest on because this is the part that tends to get not only subjective, but there's a ton of examples of this. So common interview questions. Every company is going to have its own process, its own set of interview questions, their own scorecards that they're going to rate you on and fill out. But at the end of the day, there are some interview questions that you're just going to hear over and over again until you want to your head explodes. So it does get a little tough. So we'll go through a few of those and some common answers and ways to help you answer those. And then I will of course open it up to you guys if you have questions and specific interview questions you want to hit. So first one, tell me about yourself. Probably the most loaded question you'll ever get. A lot of people tend to not know how to answer this. They start talking about their personal lives, what they like to do on the weekends, what their hobbies are, things like that. When an employer is asking you to tell me about yourself, they're typically looking for your experience. So, this is another way of saying, take me through your resume, walk me through your background, tell me about yourself, all the same question. When you're answering this question, you want to go reverse chronological order. So, this is something that if any of you were in the resume class that we did, you might already know. You want to start with your oldest and least relevant experience first, and then work your way up to your current experience. So, tell me about yourself. How did you end up here? What's your background? All the same question. Well, I graduated from College of Staten Island. I ended with a BS in psychology and a 3.9 GPA. From there, I entered the recruitment world with agency recruiting, moved on to another role. Now I'm looking to do XYZ, and here I am. So it's just a nice quick summation of your experience. You don't have to get into crazy detail. Broad strokes is totally fine. So this just gives them an overall idea of who you are and what you've been doing, which is essentially what they're looking for. Next question, also a fun one. Why do you want to work here? Right? And in our heads, it's like, because I need a job, because I need to pay my bills, I need a paycheck. Not always the greatest answer, right? So, I mean, we all know why you're here. You're here to work, you're here to interview, but why do you want to work here and for this job? So, this is where your research comes in real handy. So, this gives you a chance to highlight not only that you've done your background on the company, but that the company's goals align with your goals, and therefore it would make a good match. So, for example, why do you want to work here? Let's say you were interviewing at PennWest. Well, I've done my research on PennWest. It's an extremely accomplished academic institution. They do a lot of community outreach. I'm especially interested in the work they do with students and alumni in terms of preparing them for the real world. As a recruiter, I am hoping to be able to do the same in my career. And so I think it would be a good match and I think it would be in alignment. So, again, it's just a chance for you to highlight that you've done some research on the company, you know about who they are and what they do, and then you have a chance to then highlight a relevant skill and why that would make you a good match for that role. So again, all these questions are just more chances for you to advertise yourself. The next one, this is a fun one too, and I think I can safely say it's probably going to come up in every single interview you ever have in one way, shape, or form. Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. It's either going to be, tell me about your accomplishments, tell me about something you struggled with in the past. They might come out and say it just like this, strengths and weaknesses, excuse me. There's lots of different ways to answer the question. This one gets a little tricky. Some people tend to be honest and say what their weaknesses are, right? And or just pull something out of nowhere that they sort of think is irrelevant, so it won't really hurt them in the job. Good thoughts, not the best approach. So for strengths, let's break it down into two. So for strengths, I always tell people in your mind, and you could do this all in your interview prep before you go on interviews. You'll use it all the time, so you might as well just get them in your head. Pick out three of your biggest strengths, three that are related to your work experience or skills that you have that would apply to the office environment or the work environment. So maybe attention to detail would be a great one. Maybe your strength is in data. You're great with numbers and statistics. Maybe communication is something that's one of your top skills. So regardless of what they are, and they're going to be different from everyone, have three in your mind. This way you always have them there. They're always ready. And depending on what the person's looking for, the type of questions they're asking, you can plug in the most relevant of your strengths. So keep those in mind. On the flip side, your weaknesses. Now, it is a little bit of a trick question, just as everybody thinks. They do want to know your weaknesses, of course, if there's anything you can improve on, but how you answer this question goes a long way. I always tell people when you're doing weaknesses, come up with an example of something that maybe was a weakness and you've improved upon, or something that you're currently working on improving upon. So that way you can spin it into a positive. So, for example, Kim, what would you say your weaknesses are? Well, I would say, I'm not as good with data mining and manipulation as I would like to be in terms of statistics and reporting. However, I have been taking on some Excel classes in the evenings, or I have enlisted a tutor who's helping me with those, and I've greatly improved over the last year, and I continue to do so. So if you caught what I did there, it was a negative, right? It is a weakness. I could be better. Sure. Who couldn't be? But I'm actively taking steps to change that. I'm being proactive about fixing my strengths and making sure that I get caught up to speed. So again, this is another chance to highlight to the employer, well, yeah, I'm not perfect just like anybody else, but here are the things that I'm going to do and how I'm going to go above and beyond to address what I see as my weaknesses. So, big one, really goes a long way. Next question, another loaded one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Right? A very common question, especially starting out. What they're really looking for here is, do you have plans? Are you setting goals, right? Are you a goal-oriented person? Are you able to, you know, put something in your mind far term and achieve that goal, right? And it's an important thing, right? Companies are very big on planning. They're very big on making sure everybody's on the same page. We're all working towards one goal. That's really what they want to see. When I answer this question, I tend to, again, use my research to throw in some facts about the company or things I know about the company. So, if Diana asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Well, Diana, I know I'm just starting out now and I don't have much experience, but I'm hoping that I can get my foot in the door with, an amazing academic institution such as yourself, and hopefully continue to grow along with the firm over those years. Boom. Perfect answer, right? So again, it seems like an easy question, not as easy as you think, but there's a very simple way to address it. You just want to, again, you're always aligning yourself with the goals of the company. Why should we hire you? Another great question that comes up often, and unfortunately saying because I'm the best is not a valid answer in an interview. So again, all these questions, opportunities to sell yourself, opportunities to market yourself to the client. Why should we hire you? So, well, Diana, I was a college student myself recently. I really remember what that experience is like, and I have a huge passion for giving back. I believe you should hire me because with that knowledge and with that passion, I would believe I would be able to come in and help make an immediate impact to your students. So again, you want to highlight some of your strengths, some of your skills in there, and then align it with the company goals and what they want to do. Um, Another big one that comes up, challenges, right? Tell me about a challenge you've overcome. Tell me about a problem you had at work that you had to solve. Tell me, about a situation that, was an issue. How did you fix it? How did you solve it? So again, what they're looking for here is basically your train of thought, right? How do you handle things when problems come up? Problems come up everywhere, every day, for everybody in one shape or another, right? How we handle those problems and how we handle those situations is really the most important part. So, what I tell people is this one comes up a lot. Take your time, sit down, think of a story, think of a situation, and have one ready all the time because this question does come up a lot. When you're choosing the situation, when you're thinking about, okay, which example am I going to give these guys of a challenge, right? It should always be something work related, team related, right? So maybe a sports team or a group project in academia would be the most relevant things outside of the workspace, but you want to keep it relevant to that, right? Because you're working with different people, you want to show that you can work with different departments and different personalities to solve a problem. So you want to try to keep it focused on that, and it should have a happy ending. So, maybe you were working on a giant Excel spreadsheet. It's got 10,000 lines of data. There's a break in the code for pulling the data, and now your entire 10,000 lines of data are messed up, right? Not an easy thing. So, okay, what I did was I sat down, I grabbed the folks from the project team, I grabbed the folks from IT. We sat down together, we formed a plan, we split the work, we went through it, found the missing or the error in the code, whatever it may be, and then worked together as a team to adjust it. So, again, always a happy ending. You want to try to pick a situation where you got involved with other folks, maybe from other departments, other sides of the fence. Maybe if it's a sports game, it's the referees and the coach and the players getting together, right? You want to sort of highlight that how you worked with different people in different areas together to solve the same problem. And again, always happy ending. You don't want to tell them a story where you weren't the hero in that one. Very similar to that and sort of in line with that is the how do you handle a stressful environment, a stressful situation when things don't go your way. It's a big one. It really is. A lot of times, especially in the workplace, things don't always go the way we as individuals would prefer them to go or think that they should go. But unfortunately, we might not be in a decision making position. So a lot of times you're going to have to do things that you may not necessarily agree with the process or what systems they're using. Or, there's a screaming customer on the other end of the phone who's yelling at us because she didn't get her delivery. All of these things are going to come up. You're always going to have issues that come up in the workplace. You're here to solve those problems. So, you always want to make sure that you are highlighting when you answer this question that despite being in a stressful situation or a situation that may seem tense, you are going to remain calm, cool, collected, use your knowledge, skills, and experience to address the problem, or whatever the situation may be. So, again, these are all just sort of getting to the personality of you questions and how you handle certain situations. Same thing with the team player, right? You're going to be working in different departments. You're going to have counterparts in other areas of a business that you have to work with. You're going to deal with customers. You're going to deal with managers, subordinates. So you really want to make sure that you're highlighting that you can handle folks at different levels. You can get along with folks at different levels, that your focus is on the goal the organization, excuse me, has, as opposed to your personal goals. So these are some of the more basic sort of questions that I've seen come up about a million times over and over again, and the ones that I notice people tend to struggle with. So hopefully I did help you guys with some of those questions. But more importantly, I wanted to give you guys some time, since you guys are the ones who, in fact, are going out there now and hitting the conference rooms and going on the interviews. If you guys have any questions about anything at all that we went over, or how to answer certain interview questions, I am happy to take them.
Kim, we have a couple of questions for you. We had some
Great.
submitted before the session started. You did touch upon having red hair and some things being a little bit more relaxed or accepted today. One of the
Yeah.
questions we had was, how acceptable are tattoos and nose rings? Is that something I should um, cover or remove prior to
Mhm.
my interview?
Great question. You might also not notice from the Zoom, but I also have a nose ring. So, very and tattoos. So yeah, very relevant question, very good question. Times have certainly changed. There was a time where that would have probably been like hands down, no question, unacceptable. It's very different now. However, you want to err on the side of caution, because you don't know who the person behind that chair is going to be making those snap judgments. So I always say err on the side of caution. Cover the tattoos if you can, if they're in a place that you can cover, with sleeves, collared shirt, your suit jacket, great. If it's something that's really standing out, like your hand or your face, that might be a little bit harder to do. I highly recommend no one get any face tattoos, by the way. Piercings, I say take out. The first thing you do, interviews, always err on the side of caution. Cover it, take the piercings out, hide it, for lack of a better word. But when you get there, take a look around. So a great example is I worked in on Wall Street, and I also worked in marketing. On Wall Street, everybody wore a suit, pocket squares. There were no tattoos, no piercings, no crazy colored hair, nothing, right? And you did not do that in the office. Right across the street at the marketing agency I worked at, mohawks, green hair, tattoos, face painting. They're a marketing agency. They're a little more creative. Everyone's in jeans and a t-shirt. So you really do these days see across the spectrum in terms of the culture and what they allow. So, long story short, err on the side of caution, piercings out, keep it conservative, hide them as much as you can. And then when you get there, take a good look around the office, and you'll get a great idea of what they allow and what they don't.
Hey, we have three more questions for you. The next one, would it be appropriate to ask the employer during the interview how teamwork relates to the projects they cover in meetings?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a great point, and actually something I probably am going to add into this slide now that this question came up. So whoever asked that, it's a great one. At the end of the interview, employers are typically going to leave you some space for you to ask questions of the employer. This is a great question to ask. So, one, it gives you an idea of how they operate internally. It gives you an idea of how the teams interact with each other and how they're dependent upon one another. And it'll also give you a great sense of the culture. So, yes, it's a great question to ask. You can absolutely ask it. Um, any questions you have for the employer are going to be great about what's the day to day like, what teams am I interacting with, who do I report to, what's the most important responsibility I'm going to have in this role. All great questions. The only questions you do want to stay away from, I will say this, is money, unless they bring it up. So you don't want to be sitting in there having your first interview great, this job sounds great. How much do you pay? Right? Because it puts the focus more on the money than it does in the actual job. You want to show them you're there for the actual job. You can have the money conversation beforehand, afterwards, another point in time in that interview. You want to just focus on your skills, what you can bring to them. So just to touch on that too.
So there's generally at the end of an interview, the interviewers will ask the interviewee, do you have any questions for us? Which
Mhm.
questions would you like to be asked?
Oh, great question. So yeah, as I kind of mentioned just now, that is important. They do tend to leave that open to you in the end. Questions that I like to hear because I think it helps people get a better understanding of the job and at any job and what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis is what's the biggest challenge I'm going to face in this role, right? So it sort of gives you an idea of the hardest parts of the job or the dirtiest or ugliest or least fun parts of the job. It'll tend to get you that answer. So I like that one. Take me through a typical day. So I think that's a good question too. A lot of people have asked me that, what's a day in the life of Kim like working here? I think that's a great question too, really informative. And then probably my rounding out my top three would be what are the most important skills I need for this job? So it's a great question. It helps you get more information as the person on the interview. It helps me highlight what I'm looking for, right? Because typically my answer to that question is going to be the important things in an employee that I look for. And it gives you a chance to respond and say, oh, you're looking for someone who's got real attention to detail. Great, that's me, So it sort of gives you another chance to highlight your skills as well. So that's probably my top three. Good one.
Can you mention the importance of sending a thank you note after your interview? Would you like the thank you note by email or would you prefer one sent through a hard copy?
Snail mail as we
Snail
might be
mail.
delightfully calling it these days. Good question. Yes, I think so let me say this. It's not a must, right? This is not something that everybody does. It's not something that's necessarily all well known. Um, but I think it's a great thing to do. So I highly encourage all of, folks that I send in on interviews, and interviews I've gone on, I always send a follow-up thank you. I do it via email. Typically when you're in the interview, folks will give you a business card or maybe you've been in contact with them already to set it up, so you have their email address. Either way, you're going to have some point of contact with the company, be it HR or the hiring manager, doesn't matter. And I always say absolutely follow up. So a thank you is a great chance to, one, not only thank them for their time. Two, it reminds them of you, right? Keeps you fresh in their heads. And three, it's actually yet another opportunity for you to sell yourself, your skills, and why you'd be good for the role. So, maybe I met with Diana, sent her a follow-up email. Hey, Diana, it was so great meeting with you guys the other day. I really enjoyed doing the presentation for you. I'm hoping that, together we could work together in the future. I think that my experience with recruiting would make an excellent addition to your career development team. Right. So, again, a chance to reiterate the things you talked about at the interview, how your skills apply, and sort of sell yourself again. So,
And my
definitely,
last question,
definitely
Kim, is you and I have the same major, attended the same classes. We have the same education. So what would give two individuals who have equal education, what would give someone the edge in applying for your position? How would you select between two equally educated candidates?
great question. And honestly, it's a situation that comes up very often. A lot of times, especially as a hiring manager, you are going to see many qualified candidates, folks who have the education, who have the background experience to do the job. The difference between the two, for me, honestly, is going to be what I see in that interview. Um, it's going to be that person's personality. How did they present? Did they ask me smart questions? Did they seem interested in the role? Did they seem passionate about the role? Right. So that's probably going to be my all things being equal, everything else being said, how that person presents in that room, the energy they give me, and the enthusiasm they present is going to be the thing that makes the difference for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. I don't see any
Sure.
more questions. We really appreciate your support, your advice today. It was spot on. I hope that it's going to help our attendees and future viewers of this program have that competitive edge when they present themselves in an interview setting. Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you everyone for attending today.
Thank you.